What's up, Taiwan? I'm Jaime Ocon with some news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's military reported 20 Chinese warplanes and 4 naval ships operating around the country in a span of 24 hours. 15 of the warplanes crossed into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone. The zone is not Taiwan's airspace, but the military uses it as a defensive buffer. The Chinese aircraft included 4 radar planes, 5 fighter jets, 5 bombers, and a drone. Taiwan's military tracked the aircraft and deployed missile defense systems. Foxconn founder and presidential hopeful Terry Gou has criticized the ruling party for interfering with the BNT vaccine purchases. The government said that this was not true. Bing Wang reports.
Foxconn founder Terry Gou is out on the campaign trail and exchanging blows with Taiwan's government. Gou has accused the government of blocking the purchase of BNT COVID-19 vaccines in 2021. He says the government insisted on using the phrase independent government of Taiwan on the contract, something that the manufacturer of BNT and a Shanghai-based distributor couldn't accept. Gou said he would disclose all the relevant information soon.
资料整理一下，我们会在脸书呢详细，因为这里面我讲事实就是事实啊，我讲我们会用事实来说明。
It's an accusation that the government has denied.
那我们5月28号的时候，那指挥中心的记者会大概也有提到那我们欢迎那地方政府或者企业能够提出申请，那说他们要来购买国外的疫苗，但是还是要准备好相关的这些的资料。
Although the government's initial purchase fell through, Taiwan did eventually get its hands on BNT. Gou's Foxconn helped to purchase 10 million doses of the BNT vaccine alongside chip giant TSMC. They struck a deal with German manufacturer BioNTech and a Chinese distributor, Shanghai Fuxing Pharmaceutical Group. The Tsai administration was strictly against importing vaccines from China, but facing local pressure for the lack of vaccines, the government allowed the 2 companies to negotiate on behalf of Taiwan. The compromise was that the vaccines would be shipped directly from Germany.
我是代表 中华民国挂号台湾的这个政府来签署的，所以我们的名称这里头应该是相当的清楚了。
As Taiwan gears up for a crucial presidential election, potential candidates are trying everything to gain an advantage. With Gou seeking the opposition Kuomintang nomination, he's looking to prove he's got what is needed to take on the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. But faced with strong government rebuttals, all eyes will be on whether he can back up his claims with evidence. John Su and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Vice President Lai Ching-te has thanked St. Kitts and Nevis for its long-term support of Taiwan. Lai was speaking to St. Kitts and Nevis Deputy Prime Minister Gregory Hanley. The Caribbean island nation is one of 13 countries that still has formal ties with Taiwan. Lai, who is gearing up for a presidential run, thanked Hanley for his country's support for Taiwan.
特别是去年4月份，德鲁总理在内阁里面无意通过支持台湾加入世界卫生组织、国际民航组织、国际刑警组织，还有国际气候变迁组织等等。这个是在各国有史以来前所未有的，这对台湾来讲意义重大。
Former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss is set to visit Taiwan later this month. The 5-day trip will include a talk and meetings with Taiwanese officials, but details of the event have not been released. Truss is the shortest tenured British Prime Minister at just 49 days. Her failed economic policy required a bailout from the Bank of England. She expressed support for Taiwan both during her very brief time as Prime Minister and while serving as UK Foreign Secretary. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on the World Health Organization to invite Taiwan to observe its annual assembly. Blinken says that inviting Taiwan will help the WHO's Health for All push. The WHO's governing assembly meets in Geneva in late May. Taiwan hasn't been invited to the event since 2017 because of pressure from China. Blinken added that U.S. support for Taiwan's participation does not violate Washington's One China policy. China's maritime militia sailed close to where the navies of India and other ASEAN nations were conducting drills in the South China Sea. The Chinese boats did not disrupt the exercises, which were the first of their kind between India and the Southeast Asian grouping. The South China Sea is seen as a possible flashpoint for a major conflict. Beijing claims most of it under its 9-dash line. Other countries also claim parts of it. The two-day drills ended on Monday. For more, our reporter Louise Watt spoke to Dr. Pooja Bhatt, a maritime analyst based in Delhi and author of the book 9-Line, Deciphering the South China Sea Conundrum.
Why are India and ASEAN holding their first joint exercises in the South China Sea now?
So as you're aware that India and ASEAN held their elevated their relationship to the strategic partnership, comprehensive partnership last year in 2022. So I think these exercises are just coming to take a next step in the relationship. In that regards, we were expecting these exercises waiting to happen, because India has already been holding these bilateral exercises with a lot of Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam and Philippines. However, regional level exercises were due, and I'm glad that has happened now. So I think it's a work in progress between the two sides, India and ASEAN.
How important is the South China Sea for India? I mean, are these exercises more a way of India expressing its displeasure at Beijing because relations between India and China haven't been so good over the past few years?
So these exercises in South China Sea is very important for India, and it's very it's from the viewpoint of national interest. If you see, India has its trade, over 55% of its trade passing through South China Sea. Most of our high trade partners are Japan, South Korea, even China. So for India, it's only reasonable to have the sea line of communications open and the trade routes quite clear and free of any threats of any kind, traditional and non-traditional. This is only a coincidence to say that India-China relationships are not going to the best of the times. However, at the same time, India is taking its relationship with the Southeast Asian countries really seriously. And then both of these sides have mutual interest in economic prosperity of the region. I think from that viewpoint, India and ASEAN is going ahead for these exercises to secure and safeguard the sea line of communications in the South China Sea.
Speaking there was Dr. Pooja Bhatt, a maritime analyst based in Delhi. Australia has announced a major aid package to boost ties with Pacific nations. The government plans to spend $1.3 billion in the region over the next 5 years. Most of the funds will be for defense engagement, with some going to infrastructure and labor initiatives. The aid comes as China increases its influence in the Pacific. China's Foreign Minister Qin Gang is protesting an EU proposal to blacklist several Chinese companies. This came during a meeting with his German counterpart Annalena Baerbock in Berlin on Tuesday. The EU says these companies had breached sanctions that were placed on Russia last year after it invaded Ukraine. It says its goal is to keep Russia from getting civilian hardware that could also have military uses. But Qin pushed back on this and said China will defend its interests and its companies. The United States has dismantled Russian spyware, which has been stealing sensitive information for almost 2 decades. On Monday, the FBI used a court order to cut off Russian access to computer networks in the U.S. This is the Justice Department's latest move to target foreign spy rings more aggressively. Turla, the Russian hacking group targeted, is known as one of Moscow's elite cyber espionage units. Its tools breached U.S. military networks in the 90s and hacked the U.S. Central Command in 2008. Over 50 countries have been targeted by the spyware. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been found liable for sexual abuse and defamation by a jury in New York. The plaintiff, columnist E. Jean Carroll, says Trump raped her in the 1990s. She says he later defamed her by calling her a liar when she came forward with the accusations. Carroll was awarded around $5 million in damages. Despite the verdict, Trump was not found liable for rape. Trump says he will appeal the decision, and he's also facing a separate lawsuit for allegedly falsifying business records over a hush money payment to a porn star. Junior divers in southern Taiwan have been practicing without a pool. Diving is an overlooked sport in the country with a few breakout stars. As Joyce Sung reports, many challenges lie ahead for those looking to make a splash.
Diving into crash mats, Though a common training tool, it's been the only way to practice for these junior divers in southern Taiwan's Kaohsiung city. They are preparing to compete in June. Only 3 cities in the country have public pools deep enough for divers. This Kaohsiung pool is the only one in the southern region, but it's been under renovation since last year, and problems keep cropping up, delaying the pool's reopening.
结构问题又必须最快要到12月，其实这样的一拖再拖，都造成包括游泳选手、跳水选手在训练上面的这个权益都会受到影响。
Diving rosters are often much smaller than those of other aquatic sports, like swimming. In the U.S., college leagues combine the two to save costs, even though they have different scoring methods and goals. In the professional world, diving is dominated by China and the United States, and at international meets, Taiwan's divers often don't make the cut to compete. But there have been a couple breakout stars over the years, like 1996 Olympics qualifier Zhuang Hongbin and the 2000 Olympics semifinalist Xie Peihua. Both are from Kaohsiung, giving the city some motivation to invest in the sport.
运发局本于支持我们高雄的这些体育团队，那么我们运发局也会来筹措一些相关的经费来补助。
As the city hopes to find new stars, plenty of hurdles lie ahead. Despite having run-down facilities and no pool to train in, these budding divers diligently get on with practice, going through the motions while waiting for a proper training site. James Lien and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
An annual swimming event in central Taiwan has been canceled because of the drought. Every June, thousands of people swim across Sun Moon Lake in Nantong County. The lake is a popular tourist attraction and reservoir. But on Tuesday, water levels were below 60% of capacity. Organizers have decided to scrap this year's event. You've heard about 3D printed objects, but what about 3D printed fish? A company is looking to make lab-grown fish an alternative food source to wild ones. Eric Gao has the details.
These aren't your normal fish fillets. They're not even your normal fish. These are 3D printed fish steaks made from lab-grown grouper cells. An Israeli company called Stakeholder Foods has come up with a way to make the meat feel as close as possible to the real thing.
With our patent-protected printing capabilities, we know to 3D print exactly the same texture and flakiness of a real fish. That's something that we have already a capability today of printing.
It may look like the real thing, but the big question is, how does it taste?
I can feel the same, almost the same experience of the fish structure in my mouth, and I'm also really amazed by the juiciness and also the kind of a buttery feel in my mouth.
For the fillets, Stakeholder grows muscle and fat cells in a lab. These cells are added into a sort of bioink that can be used with 3D printers. Because the process is still expensive, they add plant-based ingredients to fill out the bioink. So far, they've successfully replicated grouper and eel, but they're working on other fish species too.
We have 3 other species in our pipeline that are also endangered sort of species that we'll be coming out with publicly in the next few months. And the goal is to build a repository so that the same hardware can manufacture products from any of these cell lines.
Stakeholders has teamed up with Singapore-based Umami Meats to bring their products to Asia. Fish is a major source of protein for over 1 billion people in the region.
For us, it's high impact regionally and I think more salient to a conversation about food sustainability.
For now, the 3D printed fish is more expensive than traditionally caught fish, but the companies say they're confident that as the technology matures, the price will come down and more people will be able to afford it.
We want consumers to choose based on how it tastes and what it can do for the world and for the planetary environment, and we want to take cost off the table as a consideration.
The companies hope to start selling their 3D printed fish steaks next year in Singapore before expanding to other countries. So, soon, these fabricated fillets could be available in a restaurant near you. Kama Xu and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Jaime Ocon. Take care and see you next time.